You know, there are moments in life that sneak up on you. Moments where you suddenly realize just how fragile everything really is. I remember one winter in the mountains of northern Colorado. A storm had rolled in overnight, the kind of blizzard that makes even seasoned hikers think twice. And there I was, in a little cabin that barely had running water, watching the snow pile up against the windows like a wall. The wind howled like it had some sort of personal vendetta, and somewhere out there, two kids and their mom were trying to make it through the night, completely stranded on a trail that wasn't meant for anyone in weather like this. But what really got me gripping my coffee mug wasn't the storm itself, it was the thought of their dog, Max, a massive Alaskan Malamute, pacing outside, refusing to come inside, even though the snow was thick up to his chest. He had this stare that could pierce through walls, the kind that made you think, okay, this dog knows something we don't. And I had a feeling he wasn't just standing out there for fun. He was standing guard, and he had a job to do. Max wasn't just a dog. He was this hulking, furry presence, all gray and white with eyes that seemed to hold a little bit of every wolf in his lineage. He had been with Sarah, the mom, since before her twins, Emma and Jake, were born. She had found him at a shelter when he was barely a year old, scrawny and clawing at life like he knew he deserved better, and from the moment he settled into her tiny home, he was family. He had this way of curling up next to the kids that made them giggle, all paws and ears, but the second something fell off, like a stranger at the gate or a car sliding on ice outside, he turned into this silent guardian, alert and tense. And I swear, you could almost see him calculating the danger, assessing it like a little general in fur. That morning, Sarah had set out with the twins for a quick supply run to the small general store down the mountain road. She had promised it would be quick, and normally it was, but the storm had snuck in faster than anyone expected. Within an hour, the light snow had turned into a whiteout, visibility dropping to almost nothing. The wind clawed at their jackets and hats, making every step feel like moving through cement. Sarah had tried to keep the twins calm, telling them stories and jokes, but even their small hands clinging to hers couldn't hide the fear in their eyes. And Max, running slightly ahead and slightly behind depending on the trail, kept glancing back, almost nudging them forward with a nudge of his nose or a bark that wasn't loud but carried weight, like he was saying, "Keep going. I've got you." Now, I'll tell you, the thing about wolves in that region is they tend to hunt in packs, and the cold makes them desperate. Hungry wolves smell vulnerability a mile away. And in a storm like that, with footprints hidden by the blowing snow, Sarah and the twins were basically invisible to anyone who wasn't looking very, very closely, which, as luck would have it, was exactly how trouble found them. There was a moment, Sarah later told me, when she felt the hairs on the back of her neck stand up. She had no idea what was coming, just a primal sense that something was watching. And then there were the sounds, low, guttural growls carried on the wind, and the crunch of snow as paws hit the ground. The kind of sound that makes you freeze, makes you question every step you're about to take. And at that exact moment, Max's stance shifted. His tail stiffened, his hackles rose, and there was this low rumble in his chest that told anyone paying attention that he wasn't going anywhere. Sarah froze, clutching Emma and Jake close, whispering, "It's okay, Max has got us." And I know, you might think, okay, it's just a dog. How much difference can one dog make against a pack of wolves? But Max, he was no ordinary dog. He had been through this kind of storm before, had chased away stray coyotes when he was younger, had this instinct that went beyond training or command. He looked like he weighed a ton, like a small bear ready to pounce. And yet there was this precision in every movement, every calculated shift of his paws. It was almost cinematic, the way he circled, positioning himself between the twins and the sound of approaching danger, his eyes never leaving the horizon. And I can only imagine what was going through Sarah's mind at that moment. Fear, disbelief, and, somehow, a strange comfort knowing that the dog she had raised from a pup was about to face down an entire pack if he had to. And the first wolf stepped into view, its coat gray and silver, blending perfectly with the storm, and it froze when it saw Max. There was a moment, just a fraction of a second, where both stared at each other like two warriors, sizing up who would move first. And then another wolf appeared, and another, their eyes glinting, teeth catching the pale light that managed to sneak through the clouds. Max let out a bark, low and resonant, and it wasn't just a bark. It was a declaration, a warning that this ground was taken, that these humans were under his protection. And I swear, even in the storm, that bark carried like thunder, echoing across the frozen expanse. Sarah told me later that she felt tears freezing on her cheeks, not from the cold, though that was biting enough, but from the sheer courage she was witnessing. Max wasn't running. He wasn't hiding. He wasn't giving them a second thought. He was standing there, massive and unflinching, ready to protect, ready to fight if he had to. And the twins, they clung to her, wide-eyed, whispering, "Mom, he's going to fight the wolves, isn't he?" And Sarah had to smile through the panic, nodding, because yes, he absolutely would. He had to. At that moment, the storm seemed to slow down. The wind softened like the world was holding its breath, and Max's stance became almost ritualistic, circling, barking, then retreating slightly, forcing the wolves to think twice, keeping them at bay without actually engaging just yet. And it was clever. He knew he didn't have the numbers, but he had strategy, and he used the storm, the snow, the terrain to his advantage. He led the wolves away from the kids in subtle shifts, using his presence to protect them without drawing too much attention. It was almost like watching a chess game, except the pieces were alive and hungry, and one wrong move could have meant disaster. And that's where the real tension started, the kind that makes your heart race even sitting miles away watching it unfold. The wolves tested him, circling closer, sniffing, judging, trying to find a weakness. Max barked. He lunged. He made himself look bigger, snarling just enough to keep them cautious. And Sarah whispered prayers under her breath, holding the twins, feeling the icy wind bite through her gloves, all the while knowing that the fate of her little family rested on the courage of this dog she had called her companion for so long. It was the kind of situation you only read about in books, the kind you never expect to live through, and yet here they were, 3 humans and a dog against nature and instinct itself. I could go on about how the snow whipped against their faces, how every step could have been a slip into tragedy, how Max's breathing became heavier, how his paws sank into the snow like anchors. But I want you to feel it, that blend of fear, awe, and trust that only comes in moments like this. Because by the time Sarah finally said, "Hold on, baby, he's got this," you could almost see Max nodding, acknowledging the weight of the responsibility, the bond that had been forged over years of walks, training, and love. And in that moment, the storm outside didn't matter so much anymore. The story wasn't just about snow or wolves. It was about loyalty, about instinct, about courage that transcends size or species. And just when the wolves thought they had the upper hand, Max shifted, circling again, putting himself in the perfect spot to make the next move, ready to strike if they came closer. And I'll tell you, even if I had been standing right there, I don't think I could have breathed. Because sometimes heroism isn't about glory, it's about standing your ground, about being willing to take the risk for someone you love. And in that storm, on that trail, Max was a hero in every sense of the word. And then it happened. The wind picked up again, sharper this time, and with it came the subtle crunch of paws, the kind of sound that makes your stomach twist even when you're safely tucked inside. Max stiffened, his ears flat against his head, hackles raised, and suddenly the entire dynamic shifted. The first wolf had edged closer, testing him, circling cautiously, its eyes locked on Max as if sizing him up. And that's when Max did something brilliant. He barked again, louder this time, more authoritative, almost a warning shot that said, "Step closer, and you'll regret it." But it wasn't just noise. There was strategy in it. He lunged forward and then darted to the side, using the snowbank as cover, forcing the wolves to follow him around, buying time for Sarah and the twins to inch along the trail, their footprints buried almost instantly by the swirling storm. Sarah whispered, almost to herself, "Go, go, we're almost," but her words were swallowed by the wind. The twins clung to her coat, little hands freezing against her arms, and Emma whimpered, "Mom, he's going to fight them." And I can hear Sarah's voice in my head, tense but trying to stay light. "He's not just going to fight them, sweetie. He's going to outsmart them." And you know, at that moment, it struck me how much trust she had in this dog, in his instincts, in the bond that had been forged over years of walks, play, and quiet companionship. The wolves were smart. They weren't just mindless predators. They tested, they circled, they tried to flank him, moving in and out of the shadows the storm threw across the trail. And Max, ever vigilant, adjusted constantly, darting forward, retreating, growling, barking, snapping at the snow just ahead of their noses to confuse them. It was almost like watching a dance, if the dance could kill you. Every move had weight, every hesitation a potential disaster. And all the while, Max kept glancing back at the kids, almost checking, almost reassuring them with his eyes. "I've got this. Just keep moving." Then one of the wolves lunged, faster than Sarah or the twins could react, teeth bared. Max met it head-on, his paws digging into the snow as he blocked the wolf's path, forcing it sideways. There was snarling, a blur of gray and white fur. Snow kicked up like tiny explosions in every direction. And I can only imagine what Sarah's mind was doing. Calculating escape routes, thinking of places to hide, but mostly holding her breath and trusting the dog she had known since before her kids could even speak. Emma whispered again, barely audible. He's like a superhero. And you know, in that storm, with the wind screaming around them, I think she might have been right. Max was more than a dog. He was a force of nature, a living shield, a guardian who refused to let fear dictate the outcome. The wolves retreated slightly, regrouping, testing the perimeter, and Max shifted again, circling, making sure they couldn't get close without thinking twice. And then, in the chaos of snow and wind, one of the twins slipped. Jake's little boots caught on an icy patch, and he fell forward. My heart would have stopped if I had been there. But Max was instantly there, barking sharply, nudging him upright with his massive nose, and stepping between him and the wolves like a furry wall. Sarah dropped to her knees to pull Jake closer, whispering, "You're okay. You're okay. He's got us." And in that frozen moment, the storm faded slightly in significance because you could see, crystal clear, that courage doesn't always roar. Sometimes it just stands there, massive, and refuses to back down. Then the real test came. The lead. Wolf, bigger and older, more scarred than the others, charged. Max met it in a blur of snow, teeth bared, growling with a force that echoed off the mountainsides. They circled each other, each paw placement measured, each breath visible in the icy air. And then, Max made a move that was pure instinct and bravery combined. He lunged, not to fight recklessly, but to push the wolf away from the path, toward a drift that made it slide and lose footing. The wolf snarled, regained balance, and lunged again, but Max was ready, retreating just enough to stay safe, while keeping the wolf distracted. It was like watching an epic battle scene, choreographed by nature itself, with stakes so high it made you want to close your eyes and hope for the best. Sarah kept moving forward, holding the twins close, letting Max take the lead. Every step was a gamble, every second a test of nerves. But Max never wavered. At one point, a smaller wolf tried to circle around the back, thinking it could get to the kids from behind, and Max spun in a flash, barking, snapping, a blur of fur and motion, and the wolf yelped in surprise, skidding in the snow. It was tactical, almost cinematic, the kind of heroism you only see in movies, except this was real. And the storm, the biting wind, the isolation, all of it faded into the background because the focus was so pure. Protect the family at all costs. And then there was a moment that made Sarah freeze. A wolf broke away from the pack, cutting across the path directly toward her, teeth bared, growl low. Emma screamed, Jake cried, and Sarah's mind went blank, just registering instinctively to shield her kids. But Max was already there, intercepting the wolf with a bark that was almost human in its authority, teeth flashing, eyes locked on the predator. He collided with it, knocking it off balance, and they tumbled into the snow, rolling, snarling, pawing, and biting, a tangle of fur and determination. And in that split second, the twins clung to Sarah like they had never clung before, whispering, "Mom, he's so brave, he's so brave." And she nodded, tears freezing on her cheeks, because yes, he was. Max emerged from the tussle, breathing hard, covered in snow, but victorious. The wolves hesitated, regrouping on the edge of the drift, sizing him up, and that's when Max made his final move. He barked, loud and commanding, and advanced in a straight line, forcing them to retreat. One by one, they backed off into the trees, disappearing into the white haze of the storm, and just like that, The immediate danger was gone. Max stood there, snow caked on his fur, chest heaving, ears perked, eyes scanning to make sure no one had followed. Sarah sank to the ground with the twins, hugging them tight, whispering prayers and thanks, and Max sat down beside them, head resting on Sarah's lap, as if to say, "It's over. I've got you." And the thing about moments like that is they stay with you. Sarah later told me that she could still feel the adrenaline, the way her heart had pounded, the way fear had sharpened her senses so acutely that she remembered every detail. The crunch of the snow, the whistle of the wind, Max's fur glinting in the faint light. She said she couldn't imagine making it through that storm without him, that he had been their shield, their protector, their reason for getting through the night alive. And I believed her, because watching Max work, there was no question. Instinct, love, and loyalty had combined into something extraordinary. After the wolves finally disappeared into the forest, Max led them back toward the cabin, staying just ahead, ensuring the path was clear, checking every drift, every shadow. And the kids started to relax, small giggles escaping as they joked about how big and scary Max looked, how they were sure he had scared off 100 wolves single-handedly. Sarah laughed too, though it was shaky, but there was relief in it, pure relief that they were safe. And for a moment, the storm outside didn't matter. The cabin, the warm blankets, the hot cocoa waiting inside, they were all symbols of survival. Yes, but Max was the hero, the reason they had it at all. And then there was this tiny, unexpected moment that broke the tension completely. Max, exhausted from his efforts, tried to shake off the snow, but ended up sending a little avalanche of powder right onto Emma's head. She shrieked and laughed at the same time. Jake joined in, and even Sarah couldn't stop laughing. It was this absurdly human moment in the middle of chaos, reminding everyone that even in the scariest, most intense experiences, there's room for joy, for laughter, for the reminder that life goes on. Max wagged his tail, tongue lolling, looking proud and a little sheepish, and in that moment, the storm didn't seem quite as terrifying anymore. By the time they reached the cabin, Sarah and the twins were exhausted, snow-covered, and shivering, but safe. Max padded behind them, checking every corner, ensuring no hidden dangers lurked, then finally flopped down in front of the fire, letting out a satisfied huff. And Sarah wrapped the kids in blankets, murmuring over and over, "We made it. We made it because of him." And Max, of course, was already half asleep, but you could tell he understood, because his chest rose and fell steadily, a silent guardian finally at rest. And that's the thing about courage. It doesn't always roar, it doesn't always make headlines, and sometimes it comes in the form of a massive, furry dog with snow in his fur and a heart 10 times bigger than his body. Max had faced wolves, storms, and the kind of danger that could have ended everything, and he had done it all with this quiet, steady bravery that makes you believe in loyalty and love all over again. That night, Sarah told me she felt a bond stronger than ever with him, one that no words could capture, one that only experiences like this can forge. And the twins, they kept asking questions. "Mom, can Max fight the wolves again?" And she just laughed, hugging them close, because sometimes it's enough to survive, to be grateful, to know that someone, or something, has your back when the world seems intent on testing you. By the time they finally made it inside the cabin, the storm was still howling outside, but inside, everything felt different, warm, safe, and surreal. Sarah dropped to her knees by the fire, pulling the twins close, blankets wrapped around them like armor. Emma and Jake were giggling nervously, still shaking from the adrenaline, still wide-eyed from what they had just witnessed. And Max? Well, Max had finally let himself collapse, sprawling out in front of the fire, snow caked on his fur, tongue lolling, chest rising and falling as he soaked in the warmth. He was exhausted, but there was this quiet pride in the way he looked at them, like he understood he had done something extraordinary, and that they knew it too. Sarah's hands trembled as she brushed the snow from Max's coat. You saved us," she whispered, almost to herself, her voice thick with disbelief and relief. Emma peeked out from under the blanket and said, "He's a superhero, Mom. He really is." Jake nodded vigorously. "Yeah, he's the best dog ever." And Sarah laughed softly, a mix of tears and relief spilling out. There was this overwhelming sense of gratitude, a sense that life could have ended differently, But Max had changed the story. He had written their survival in real time, with courage, instinct, and loyalty. For hours after that, they just sat there by the fire. The twins fell asleep eventually, curled up on Sarah's lap and beside her, soft breaths filling the cabin. Max stayed alert, though, eyes half closed, ears twitching at every sound outside. Sarah watched him and realized something profound. This wasn't just about protecting her kids from wolves or storms. It was about trust, loyalty, and the quiet heroism that doesn't need applause. Max had faced danger head-on because he cared, because he had a bond with them that was stronger than fear itself. And that realization made her feel small, human, and yet incredibly grateful all at once. In the days that followed, the storm finally passed. The roads were cleared, neighbors checked in, and life slowly returned to normal. But for Sarah, the twins, and Max, normal felt different now. Every walk, every snow-covered trail, every quiet moment in the cabin reminded them of that night. The night a dog had fought a pack of wolves to protect them. Friends and neighbors came by, asking incredulously how they had survived, and Sarah would just smile and shrug, brushing snow off Max, saying, "We had some help. The best help, actually." And people would laugh, not realizing just how true that was. Sarah noticed little things, too. The way the twins kept looking at Max with awe, the way they'd mimic his little growls playfully during the day, the way she herself would glance at him and feel a mix of comfort and awe that she couldn't really put into words. Max had changed them all. He had taught them, without ever speaking, that bravery isn't about recklessness. It's about standing your ground, about protecting those you love, and about knowing when to act. It's quiet, sometimes invisible to everyone but the people, or kids, you love most. And for Max, life went on almost normally, except he was treated with a little more reverence in the cabin. Extra pats, extra treats, more blankets, and Sarah always keeping a watchful eye, not because he needed it, but because she realized the bond they shared was sacred. One day, when she watched him curl up next to the twins as they napped, snow melting from his coat, she whispered, "You're amazing, Max. I don't know how to ever thank you." And he looked up at her, tail flicking lazily, eyes calm and steady, like he already knew he didn't need thanks. He had done it for them. He had always done it for them. It wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about understanding what loyalty really meant. That night in the storm, when everything seemed lost, Max had chosen them. And in choosing them, he had reminded Sarah of something she had almost forgotten. That love, courage, and instinct can be far more powerful than fear. He had taught her children a lesson they would carry forever without ever needing words. That bravery sometimes comes with fur and four paws. That protection doesn't require applause. And that family is worth facing even the darkest, coldest night. Looking back, Sarah often thinks about how close they came to disaster, how fragile life can be, and yet how powerful a single act of courage can feel. She tells the story to friends, to family, and sometimes just to herself, sitting by the fire with Max at her feet, kids playing quietly nearby. And she always emphasizes the same thing. That moment didn't just happen because of luck. It happened because Max was brave, loyal, and willing to risk everything for them. And that's a lesson she wants the world to hear. The twins ask her sometimes, "Mom, will Max always protect us?" And she smiles, heart full, and says, "He will. He already has, and he always will." And she knows it's true, not because he can't be challenged, but because his heart is bigger than any wolf, any storm, any danger. Courage and love, she realizes, come in all shapes and sizes, and sometimes, in the form of a massive Alaskan Malamute with snow in his fur and determination in his eyes. So if you ever wonder what heroism looks like, or what loyalty truly means, look no further than a dog like Max. Not a superhero from a movie, not a legend in a storybook, but a real, living creature who will risk everything, stand against the storm, face down predators, and protect the people he loves without hesitation. It's breathtaking, it's humbling, and it's something we can all learn from, even if we don't have a pack of wolves to battle or a blizzard to survive. And I guess that's why I tell this story, not just to marvel at Max's bravery, but to remind everyone listening that courage comes in many forms, and love can be fierce, instinctive, and life-saving. That winter, in the storm, a dog saved a family. But in doing so, he also reminded us all of something we often forget, that loyalty and bravery don't need a medal, a headline, or an audience. Sometimes, they just need a heart willing to stand tall when it matters most. So, what would you do if you were in Sarah's shoes? Or in that frozen, terrifying trail with a pack of wolves circling your family? Could you trust someone else with your life? Or maybe, just maybe, it's not about you. It's about recognizing the quiet courage all around us, the kind we walk past every day. Take a moment, think about it, and maybe share your thoughts below. Tell me about the bravest thing you've ever witnessed, or the time someone, or something, went above and beyond to protect the ones they loved. Because stories like Max's don't just happen to be told, they happen to be felt. And when we share them, the courage grows, the love spreads, and the world seems just a little bit braver.